encourage them to vote. Amen. Amen. Exodus chapter 3, starting at verse 1, it says, Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock in the back of the desert, and he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame from the midst of the bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see the great sight while the bush is not burned. Y'all know the story, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Go to verse 11. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And so he said, I will certainly be with you. This is God's response to Moses. I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name, and what shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, Tell them, I am who I am. And thus shall you say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. If you would please skip over to chapter 4. Verse 1, Then Moses answered God, saying, But suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, The Lord has not appeared to you. And so the Lord said to him, What's in your hand? He said, A rod. God said, Cast it to the ground. So when he cast it to the ground, it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. The Lord said to Moses, Reach out your hand and take it up by the tail. And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand again. Skip down, if you would, to verse 10. And Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And God said to him, the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who has made the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what to say. Every person's life is written in the risk that one has taken, not in the ones they avoided. The memories of your life are typically not found in the things that you didn't do. You're known by the things that you do. If you are a skydiver, what qualifies you to be a skydiver is not that you went to a class on the ground and got on a box and jumped off a box. For a lot of people will go to a class on a box and jump off a box. And there are people who will pay money to learn how to jump off of a box. And then they get into the air. And when they look out over the plane and they see the clouds and the sky, though they jumped off a box, they hesitate at the door of the plane to jump out. Because when they jumped off the box, their memory went to a time they had fallen before from 2, 3, 4 feet and had gotten up. Maybe bruised, maybe broken, but still alive and functioning. But there is no memory of a time when they jump out of a 4,000 foot. Y'all looking like y'all jump out of a 4,000 foot flight all the time. I'm comfortable. I can get on this altar. Jump off. Woo! That was fun. I didn't even look down. Did y'all notice that? But when I get on a plane, there ain't no place else to look but down. When I jumped off the box and I did this, nothing happened. And that is the fear that I have when you jump out of a plane, that you would do this and nothing will happen. And your life is not written by the risk that you avoid. Your life is written in the risk that you take. Let me say it spiritual so you'll come to church. Life is best lived in the faith zone, not the safe zone.
Amen.
See, they all said amen. I said that. I've been saying it now for 4 minutes. Y'all ain't been saying nothing. It's the same thing. You have faith that when you jump like this, that parachute's going to work. The air is going to catch it, and you're going to go right back down. And it's going to do its thing. You're going to go, woo, and that's fun. One of the reasons you feel safer is, especially if you do a tandem jump, you assume that the guy behind you who's attached to you had a good day. There are some really important questions to ask before you jump. Are he and his wife getting along? That's an important question to ask. How's your credit score? That's an important question to ask. Are you behind on your life insurance? I don't want you up to date. I want you behind on your life insurance so that when you jump, you feel the need to live. Because I'm tethered to you. I'm attached to you. Y'all, okay, so y'all with me? What we struggle with is because in our lives we have fallen prey or we have made mistakes or we have failed, too often we are attached to our failure more than we are attached to our faith. Good place to say, man, hang on to it. I'll give you another one in a minute because y'all didn't like that one. Moses is in a spot where it is safe. Y'all remember the story of Moses, right? Moses was drawn out of the water, and Pharaoh raised him up, or his stepmother was raising him to be the next king, kind of a thing. So he knew all about leadership. He knew about these things, because he was a slave. So why did God have to take him out of the land of Israel and have him raised in the king's house? Because you can't think like a leader when you're surrounded by slaves. Let me say it like this. It's hard to soar with the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys. Amen. For young people, bad friends corrupt good morals. It's in the Bible. Corinthians. Watch out who you hang out with. You'll be just like them. Watch out who you hang out with. You'll be just like them. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Watch out who you hang. If everybody around you is broke, no wonder you broke. Find somebody who got some money and hang out with them. They will teach you something. They will teach you how to say no. Right. Most people's problem is not an income problem. It's an expense problem. They can't say no. They love the bells and whistles and they can't say no. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. Leave me out here by myself. That's okay. Isn't it amazing your wife can go to the cell and max your credit card out and tell you how much money you saved? Leave me by myself. I'm all right out here. I learned how to preach in a nursing home. I'm used to silence. I'm just saying. My first revival was in the graveyard. I'm just saying it was. We sometimes are so attached to our failures that we can't see our future because we are surrounded by this. What happened with Moses was God brought him out, raised him among leaders so that he can learn how to lead. The problem is that the problem with freshmen is they're freshmen. Yes. They're not near as bad though. The worst problems are sophomores. You a sophomore? Yeah, you're horrible. You know why you're horrible? Because as a freshman, you come into a new society knowing you don't know anything. As a sophomore, you think you got it figured out. Amen. Here's this problem. Most people in church, they think they got it figured out just because they came to Jesus, and they forget about all the other stuff that has to be learned. So Moses is raised to be a leader, and God's called him to deliver his people. And so when he sees one of the Israelites being mistreated by an Egyptian, what does he do? He becomes a leader. He rises up and he fights in the natural, and natural fighting will always bring about the death of somebody. Yeah. So he killed an Egyptian, and now he's got a problem. He killed the Egyptian, buried him in the desert, and now here's the issue. You're wanted dead or alive. Yeah. I don't care if you're the leader, but now that you're a leader, but you're still in this, you're going to have to be killed. So what are you going to do now? You thought nobody knew about it. You thought the one person you saved would be happy. Have you ever helped somebody that ain't happy about it? Yes. Have you ever helped somebody that the more you helped them, the more they stabbed you in the back? Yes. The more you tried to do stuff with them, the more they undercut you. You gave them money and then they talk bad about you. You did this and they did that. The more Moses saves this Israelite's life, and this guy goes tells everybody. So when two Israelites are fighting and Moses shows up, you know what they're afraid of? You're going to kill us too? And Moses was like, what am I going to do? So he runs away. You'll never solve your problem by running from it. No. You'll never solve your problem by running from it. I'll say that again because none of y'all got that yet. You'll never solve your problem by running from it. Running from it, because here's the thing. The problem can be solved, but you're so far away you don't know. So here you are in the desert, minding your own business, and the person you're worried about is dead and gone, but you're still held captive by the thing that is no longer existing. We made a mistake, we failed, we sinned, we jacked up, whatever you want to call it. This is what happened. And now we're over here, years later, still tethered to our failure, refusing to go forward because we're afraid of our past. That's right. Moses finds himself in his father-in-law's, Jethro's area, taking care of somebody on his safe. You can stay there forever. Moses, you can take care of sheep forever, mind your business, stay at Jethro's house, and never have a problem. You are safe there. It is okay there. You're protected there. But what are you going to do with the drumbeat of God that is resonating in your heart? Yes. What are you going to do with the thing that God told you? I've called you to be a deliverer, and here you are taking care of sheep. What are you going to do with the fact that God still has a plan for your life? Are you going to let your failure stop you from your future? We have too many people in our lives who are concerned about their past and their issues, but the desert is a self-imposed prison for living in the past and letting your failure control your future. It's a he didn't have to be in the desert. He had the ability to leave the desert, but he stayed. Why? His fear of his past being found out caused him to stay in the prison of his present. That's right. Hey, y'all ain't tweeting on this stuff. I'm telling y'all right now, this is some really good stuff that some of y'all need to be writing this stuff down, because this ain't even in my notes. This is really good stuff here. I'm saying this because here's what happens in our lives. I went through a divorce. I can't do anything anymore. Why? Well, I used to, I was a drug addict. Okay? Well, nobody's ever going to let me, what? Well, I used to beat people up for no good reason. So, what? So what's the problem? Well, I used to persecute the church. Yeah? So what's the problem? I'm not saying things that you all don't know that are in your own Bible. You all do know there's some stuff in your Bible that we don't really want to talk about. Rahab was a prostitute. And so she could have said, how can I, who used to be a hooker, be used for God? How can I, how can I, as Saul, when I was persecuting the church, I was holding the coats of people who killed men, women, and children. How could I ever be anything else but what I've always been? But yet, we find ourselves in a self-imposed prison of a desert. They always taught me this at school. You know how the difference between desert and dessert is a desert has one S and a dessert has two, because you never want to go through the desert twice. Right. Stuck with me forever as a kid. That's what I always told me. Because I was in a hot dessert. Not quite the same. So the thing is we went to the concert last night, and so she said she wanted chocolate and vanilla ice cream cone. So I went to the lady, I said, I want a chocolate and vanilla ice cream cone. She took 2 gallons of chocolate and 2 gallons of vanilla, put it on an ice cream cone, and I'm telling you guys, each scoop was that big on top of the cone. I came back and told her, she goes, what did you order? I said, chocolate and vanilla. Why did you get that? Because you said, I want a chocolate and vanilla. I went to the front and I said, do you want a chocolate and vanilla? She gave me this. It looked like chocolate and vanilla to me. She's like, it's too much. I said, I didn't scoop it. I didn't tell her how much it cost because I thought for the price I'm paying, this ain't near enough. A $10 cone is ought to have more ice cream than that. And it's funny because the dessert, a dessert you want twice as much of. A desert you only want to go through once. And yet Moses was going through years of a desert because he refused to believe God could do a miracle in his life. What desert are you living in? Self-imposed. Because you're letting your past control your future. I want you to know something about this passage. I find it very interesting because he could have stayed in a safe area. And sometimes when we get comfortable in an area, God begins to speak to us. Moses has been taking care of these sheep for a long time, and God sends an angel to let a bush catch on fire, and it doesn't get consumed, and Moses is now caught by a miracle. God, he is caught. The word that God brought that was a burning flame caught his attention. Let me say it like this. When you're in a desert, I don't even care if it's self-imposed. When you're in a desert, your eyes ought to be open. Let me back up and rephrase it and say it this way. When you're in a desert, it does not mean God's not speaking. That's right. And when you're in a desert, here's the hard part about a desert. The longer you're in it, the more you long to hear God's voice. Amen. And the longer you desire his voice. I want to hear his voice. But when his voice comes, you are so caught up in your desert and in your prison that you struggle with the voice that you know is God. Oh, I know that's God. Yeah, I've seen y'all do it in church. The worship's good, the songs are good, God's moving, and here they're going, if they'll sing it just one more time. I really believe this is God's tongue, but I really don't know if I really want to do that. Because God, if it's really you, have them sing it the second time. Then they sing it a second time. You're like, that's just Bethany. She likes that song. So if it's really you, God, let's sing it a third time. Well, that was Steve telling them they needed to do it. If it's really you, God, and finally 35, 40 minutes later, you're not doing nothing. You're like, that song just went on too long. And God's up in heaven going, I was waiting on you. I mean, that's that struggle that we have in our lives. We long for his voice, but when his voice comes, listen to what he does. The voice shows up. The desert is there. All of a sudden, the flames come. Moses starts walking to it. God tells him you're on holy ground, which is interesting in and of itself. And he looks at him and he says, you're in an area, you're safe, you're secure, but I want you to go someplace different. It's sad. I think I put this on Facebook today. It is sad when people live their lives satisfied with how they're living their lives. Amen. It's sad when people are satisfied with the thoughts they think and the deeds they do. Why? Because they are ignoring the drumbeat of God that is telling them there's more. That's right. There's more than what you currently have. There's more out there than where you currently are at. So you've got to realize there's more. So God comes to him and begins to speak to him. And one of the things that God says to him is, this is holy ground. Take your shoes off. Now, for those of you that have never been to Florida during the summer, I've been to Hawaii during the summer. It's not as bad. Because Hawaii has beaches that are like from here to the wall. That's how deep they are. So you can start walking on a Hawaiian beach, and by the time you realize it's warm, you're in the water. Florida has beaches that are 18 miles to the water. And when you get out of the car and you're walking on the beach, because you're from Kentucky and you didn't have flip-flops or sandals, whatever you want to call them. So you're walking on the beach and you want to feel the sand. So you take your shoes off and now you're walking on hot sand. And at first it feels not bad. And then you're looking for that spray of grass, that one, you're not ever walked on the beach before, that one piece of grass that's coming up, and then you run to it and put your toe there. You become a ballerina and you pirouette on your one toe because if you put your other foot down, it burns. Yeah. Moses is in a place where it's 102 million degrees, 120, 130, 140 degrees. He's on there and the ground is there and he's walking on the ground, and there's a reason you wear shoes. The reason you wear shoes is it protects your feet. It's pretty simple, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Captain Obvious. Because it protects your feet. It is a self-imposed concept to protect yourself. God says, take your shoes off. Now, if I was Moses, I think that's where my argument would have begun. I don't know that I'm willing to expose myself to the elements of pain. I'm used to the desert, but I don't know that I'm willing to expose myself to pain to be closer to you. How many of us wear our shoes, spiritually speaking, and we never allow ourselves to come closer to God because we are afraid of the pain that might happen? The exposure. Harry was talking at the concert last night where we happened to be sitting at. The lights, I call it car lights. There was big bright lights. And it was a great concert. But the lights were hitting me right in the eyes. And it didn't matter where you looked, they were right in my eyes. And so I did what most normal people do. I closed my eyes. It's hard to watch a concert with your eyes closed. But I closed my eyes because light can cause you pain.
Yep.
God is light, and the closer you get to Him, the more physical pain it can cause in your life. I don't mean in the sense of torment. What I mean is the changes that have to occur in your life. See, the closer I get to God, the more changes got to make in my life, and I don't like changes. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. The only thing that really needs to be changed quickly are bad attitudes and stinky babies. And too often what happens in our lives is we struggle because the issues that we have is we really don't want to change. I don't really mind changing as long as I don't have to do anything. I don't mind losing 15 pounds as long as I can keep eating the same way I eat and doing the same stuff I do. I don't mind getting rid of caffeine as long as I can still have my coffee. In other words, we're all the same. It doesn't matter. We all want change as long as we don't be the ones that have to change. And God says, take your shoes off because I want you to come into my presence, but I don't want you to come into my presence with your security. I want you to come into my presence understanding my security. I am secure in you, Lord. I can take my shoes off. I can risk the pain that might cause, the pain that somebody might say something, the struggle that somebody, let me prove to you in New Testament so you understand. Saul shows up in church, nobody's happy. Saul, remember the guy that just killed all the other Christians? He shows up at church and says, I'm different. And they're like, yeah. Yeah, y'all understand. Let me bring it down to a more real way that maybe you do understand. When my stepfather would walk past us, we would duck. Not because he swung, but because he has swung in the past. And we weren't trying to find out whether this was going to be the past or the future. All we knew was when he got that close, we had to be on guard. I couldn't wait. Well, what did you do? He didn't need a reason. So, and I'm not saying that's right. What I'm saying is that, you stay on edge because you're worried about it. Too often we're the same way. He can come in and say, I'm changed. I tell people, listen, and I don't mean this bad. I don't want it for sympathy. I only tell you these things for examples. One of the worst beatings I ever got was on our way to church. And there ain't nothing worse than having to go to church with your head busted and welts and bruises all over your body and watch the guy who beat you sit there in church with his hands raised saying, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And all you're praying is strike him dead, Jesus. Now, I know y'all sanctified, none of y'all ever prayed those prayers. I'm just telling you. It's one of the most challenging things to do. And I'm not saying for sympathy, I'm not saying to talk bad about him. I'm saying that because when you open yourself up, I couldn't trust in my security. I have had to learn how to trust in God. My whole life I've had to learn how to trust in God. I'm nothing special. All I've learned how to do is take my shoes off. I've learned how to take my shoes off and say, God, I'm going to come into your presence. It may cost me pain. It may cost me friends. It may cost me being misunderstood. It may cost me people lying on me. It may cost this and that and the other. It may even cost me my life. But Lord, no matter what it is, I'll take my shoes off because your presence means more to me than my own security. Take your shoes off, Moses. Come closer. And he gets there closer. I want you to notice something. Moses dealt with insecurities his whole life. People look at me and they laugh because they don't see me as a person who's ever been insecure. There's two types of people in the world. Those that are insecure and hide, and those that are insecure and boast. Both have insecurities. The only difference is one will go to their shell and the other just gets in your face. But both deal with the same insecurity. The insecurity issue is still the same. Oh, you're just confident. It's not about confidence. It's about understanding that it doesn't matter. See, I've learned in my life that I make everybody happy. Everybody, don't laugh, Jan. It's true. Some people are happy when I come in. Others are happy when I walk out. But I make everybody happy. That's just the reality of life. I'm just saying that's it. So since I make everybody happy, I don't care which side you're on. And it's not that I don't care, because everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be appreciated. Everybody wants to be cared for. But you can't let your insecurity stop you from trusting God. Amen. Take your shoes off and you come there. And the first thing that Moses says when he's dealing with his insecurity is verse 11, when he says, God, who am I that I should go? Who am I? People tell me all the time, you ain't like any preacher I ever met. And I'm like, probably not. And I don't mean that good or bad. I don't know how they mean it. I never asked for clarification. Because I probably don't want to know. I don't, and everybody, my preaching style is different than others. My wife teases me sometimes. She goes, I don't know if I went to church or a comedy show. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I would preach different. This is all that God gave me. So I don't know. I'm just saying. But you can't let it. Who am I that I should go? Who am I that I should stand up there and preach? Who am I? Harry comes and he'll say, Pastor. And I'm like, go ahead, Harry. No, I need that. No, you don't go. Who am I that I can tell you what God told you or not told you? Who am I? See, I don't think of myself as anything special. It amazes me because I remember growing up, and still to this day, there are pastors I love hanging out with. And I tell Toshi all the time, it blows me away that folks want to hang out with us. Not that we're not nice people, but I'm like, who am I? I'm just me. There's nothing special about me. And I don't mean this for any other reason. I want you to hear this. That's what Moses says. Who am I that I should go? Here's what he's really saying, or along with what he's saying is, God, do you not know that I killed the Egyptian? Who am I that I should go? Do you not know my failures? Do you not know my past? Do you not know the struggles that I currently walk in? God, do you not know that I'm not, who am I that I should go? See, too often we allow our insecurities, because we don't see who we are in God, to cause us to stay limited in a desert when God has a palace for us. We look at our insecurity. Who am I that I should lead worship? Who am I that I should play the guitar or the drums? Who am I that I should be on the keyboard? Who am I that I should sing? Who am I that I should preach? God, don't you know my failures? And God says, don't you know my grace? Don't you know my grace? He says, Lord, who am I that I should go up in front of those people? Who am I that I should do that? God says, I'll be with you. I will be with you. See, the insecurity of your life is birthed in your pride. We don't always see that. We're thinking, no, I'm insecure. No, you're proud. Because you link yourself to your failure. You link yourself to what you were, not what you are. Y'all ain't saying nothing. That's right. You link yourself separate from God, and you're not recognizing God is with you. Your view of God is too small. Your view of God is too limited. You don't understand his presence, and so you always talk about your failures, your insecurities, your shortcomings. You make yourself smaller, and you fail to recognize the bigness of God who is with you.
That's right.
There used to be a cartoon years ago. I don't remember which one it was, but I always loved it. Because it was an elephant and a mouse. And the mouse could mouth off and do whatever it wanted because it had the elephant behind it as a friend. It didn't matter. Didn't matter how small a person was. Okay, y'all didn't remember that cartoon? There are people in your lives that are little bitty people, small people, little, frail, but they have no fear because you're with them.
That's right.
I've told the illustration before. I'll use it again because it fits here. When I took my daughter to Haiti, she didn't pay attention to all the rules that we told her, which is don't go into somebody's hut without asking first. My daughter walks into the witch doctor's hut. Unasked, unannounced, unprovoked. She just walked in and she wanted to see what was going on. You know why she had no fear? Because her father was there. She has no fear at all whenever her father is around because she figures that whatever happens, I'm going to take care of it. She says, Dad, you're expendable. Don't you have a will and aren't I in it? You're okay. She has no concerns at all because she expects that no matter what happens, Dad is there. We were there the same trip. We went into this one witch doctor's hut invited, and we were there, and they were talking to the witch doctor. We were trying to share the gospel with them, and I looked around because I have trust issues, and everybody else was trusting God, and I looked around, and I'm seeing people with like sticks, bats in their hand. Some of them have machetes, and I'm looking around going, okay, nobody's behind me on purpose. I back myself against the wall, and I'm like, if this goes bad, how am I getting out? You're supposed to be praying for people. I said, I was praying, Lord, give me the strength of Samson. I'm taking all these out with the jaw on the boat. I'm just saying. We were in Haiti, we were in Honduras, and they took us to this worst place. And everybody else is down there saying, let's go tell them about Jesus. I'm like, y'all stay close. I can see you. Honey, where are you at? And I'm following her because she ain't paying attention. And I'm following her around. I'm like, wherever she's at, I'm going to be. Why? Because they were trying to grab your cell phone off the bus and stuff. I'm pushing them up. Get out the way. They're banging on the bus. I'm banging back. Get back. They don't speak English. I did it in Spanish. I said, scramble. Andale. That's all I knew. I said, get out. Run away. Leave me alone. Don't you want to tell them about Jesus? No, they're going to go meet Jesus. They need to leave me alone. Y'all are laughing. I'm just telling you. They have no fear because there's people around to protect them. See, when you understand who God is, people lose their power over you.
Amen.
When you understand who God is, you don't let fear override you anymore. Because what you learn how to do is you learn how to talk to God about your problem. And here's how you talk to God about your problem. Not, look at my problem. No. God, reveal yourself to me.
That's right. Thank you, Lord.
See, God, when you reveal yourself to me, my problem gets perspective. I'm not saying your problem is small. You may have a big problem. But your problem is you're too close to the problem. You're not looking to God.
That's right.
Sometimes you got to look. The mouse would mouth off and do whatever it wanted to do because it had tremendous confidence. Now here's the thing that was always cool about that whole thing was the mouse had confidence though it never saw the elephant. All it saw was the shadow of the elephant. All the enemy saw was the shadow of the elephant. At the end of the cartoon, the shadow was another mouse. Now, here's the great thing. God ain't no mouse. He's the real thing. But you don't have to see the real thing. You just got to see the shadow. The reason the little mouse had confidence was because he saw the shadow of his elephant friend who was supporting him. Y'all ain't saying nothing. I can dwell in the shadow of the Almighty and not be afraid. Not because there's a mouse back here, but because I know if He's with me, there's nothing in front of me that can stop me. Who am I? I am nothing. But who is with me? What gives me the authority to tell you this? Let me give you another great spiritual illustration. I was watching this one spiritual movie, Andy Griffith. And in this one, little Don Knotts, Barney Fife, had to run these two big guys off that had an illegal vegetable stand. Barney Fife walks over to him and says, y'all need to leave. And these two big guys stood up there and they're like, who are you to make us leave? And in his normal Barney Fife way, his voice began to quiver. He says, I can't do it myself. But do you see this badge? Mm-hmm. Do you see this badge? This badge represents something bigger than both of you. It represents a law. Mm-hmm. And he began to stand up for what he represented, not for who he was. Mm-hmm. Who am I? I am a representative of God Almighty. Mm-hmm. Don't let your insecurities stop you from walking in the presence that God has called you to. Let me hurry up. The second thing was God says, I'm with you. And Moses says, he says, but when I come, what shall I tell them? When I come, what will I say? When I get there, what am I going to say all the time? Pastor, what do I tell people to lead them to Jesus? Tell them about Jesus. Well, what do I tell them? I don't know. Who is Jesus to you? Well, but what do I tell them? And I look at them and I don't understand the question. Because my answer is still the same. Tell them about who Jesus is to you. Tell them about why you're there. Why are you talking to them? What's going on in your life? Just tell them what's happening. Tell them what's taking place. What shall I say? And God says, don't worry about what you're going to say. I'll fill your mouth when the time comes. Amen. I come here on Monday nights, first Monday of each month, and I stand up here, and I got a little bar stool. I sit here, have a cup of coffee, and I'm like, so, where are we going today? I never have any idea what questions are going to be asked me. But when people ask questions, I'm like, God, give me an answer. I've had questions I didn't know the answer to. I said, God, you take this one, I'll take the next one. Because I didn't know. But in just a moment of thinking, God dropped stuff. And I'm like, ooh, oh. And I'm more amazed at the answer than everybody who heard it. Not because I'm smart, but not because I read. It's because God dropped stuff in. I can't worry about what I'm going to say. See, here's why most people fail. Is they go with an idea that they don't know the answers to. They memorize a script. I always love it. Memorize a script. But what do you do when the other side doesn't have the script? You're not supposed to ask that question. You're supposed to ask this question. Did you not get the same script from Tom Hopkins that I got? You're supposed to say this. You're supposed to say that. I'm giving you the ABCs of salvation. Why are you asking me questions I don't know the answers to? Then they get all nervous. And, can we get back on script? Well, when you go and you're just like, I'm just going to tell you who Jesus is to me. Because here's what I learned a long time ago. I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to somebody who said, an experience will always overcome an argument. Dave Wilkerson used to send new Christians out on the street to testify to their friends. People who just got free from drugs, people who just got free from prostitution and different addictions. And they would go tell people about Jesus. And folks began to argue with them. They said, here's all I know, like the blind man in the Bible. I was blind, but now I see. All the rest of the stuff I can't tell you. All I know is I'm changed. Amen. I'm changed. Moses, what are you going to go tell them? Tell them who's with you. Tell them who's with you. He asked the next question in chapter 4. He says, but what am I going to do if they don't believe? I can't tell you how many people come to me. Pastor, I would do more for God, but what if I ask them to come to church and they don't show up? I said, that would be normal. Your response to the gospel or people's response to your presentation of the gospel is not your fault. Right. Man, I'm telling you, I remember when I first started preaching, I thought, nobody replied to the altar. And I go back home and beat myself up. God, you're a horrible preacher. You stink. You're giving an altar call. Nobody's replying. Then I realized it's not my job to make them reply. Here's my job for you fishermen. My job is to put chum in the water. My job is to take the thing, put the bait in the water. It's the Holy Spirit's job to hook your open mouth and drag you in.
There you go.
My job is just to make you hungry. My job is to let you know that there's something there. See, as I'm preaching about this, some of you, as I'm talking about insecurity, your mind went to, I'm insecure. And your first thought was, I wish I could be more like it. You can. There's nothing special about me. Nothing. All I've learned is I'm going to trust God and I'm going to let Him have the results.
Yes, Lord.
I used to go to preachers' meetings all the time and they'd always ask you, how many are you running in church? My answer for years was all of them. But that's the wrong answer. You know what the right answer is? You ask them how many they're running, then add 4. So, it didn't matter what number I gave them, they always had 1 or 2 more. And I'm like, it's because you're a better person than I am. You're a better preacher than I am. I don't mean that bad. I want you to understand something. I don't worry about the results because the results are mine. I promise you I can fill the place up. I'll announce I'm giving out $1,000 to everybody that comes to church. Everybody comes to church for $1,000. They just won't be there the next week.
Right.
And once you give them $1,000, they leave it, so you can't give it to them until after right before the offering. No, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I've seen that. I've been there. I remember when I was working with the youth, we'd have a pizza party, and everybody showed up. Then we'd have a prayer meeting, and I would be there. You don't realize, as long as the church was paying for everything, everybody showed up. But once I asked them to come up with $1, what if they don't believe? What if they don't believe? What if they don't believe? And I want you to see real quickly the response. I don't know my time's running past. My response is this. Here's what God told Moses. He says, what do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand? He says, I have a rod. In other words, I have the tool that I use in my everyday life. I have a rod, just my normal everyday life. I ain't got nothing special. I just had this shepherd's rod. God is not asking you to go get a theological degree or a doctorate in order for you to go share the gospel to somebody. He says, use what you have. I used to try when I first started preaching, I thought you had to use a lot of deep theological terms, and you had to know all the Greek and the Hebrew and all this stuff. And so I studied all that junk, and I would stand up here. I had so many notes, copious amounts of notes, that I would end up doing a lot of reading, and most people looked at the top of my head. I was pre-cell phone, but current views. And I would read and read, and it was great stuff, but it wasn't me. And I was afraid to tell folks that I went to movies because hey, the church I was raised up in, that was one of the things you probably shouldn't tell folk. And you couldn't tell me you knew any secular songs. At the concert last night, they even pulled up, one secular song. I thought it was kind of funny. Living on a Prayer. I thought it was kind of unique. So it was funny. But I mean, I tell this, and you're like, why do you do that? I said, because it's the only rod I have in my hand. It's the only rod I got. I would use something else, but I don't have that. I'm not as good as other folk. I feel many times like the guy in Judges chapter 3 who became a judge. Ehud, I think his name was. E-H-U-D, if I remember correctly. And they brought him up, and here's what the Bible says. He was left-handed. Now, that may not mean a big deal because we got a lot of folks left-handed. Say amen. So, we got a lot of folks who are left-handed. But in the Bible days, it would catch them off guard because why are you left-handed? You're supposed to be right-handed because your right hand is the strongest arm. And your right hand is this. But Ehud was left-handed and became a judge. Sometimes I feel like a left-handed preacher. I'm just saying, I should do it right, but God gave me a left. That's all I got. That's what I have. And so I take my rod and I use it. Throws it down. It becomes a serpent. Now here's the part that I think is funny. The rod he just had, he threw down. God did a miracle, and Moses backs up. Because he's like, it wasn't that before. How did God use my natural ability to do a supernatural thing? See, your insecurities are usually things like people tell me, Amy, I can't write about my testimonies and the miracles that God's done in my life. I'm not a writer. So she said, well, come
talk to me, I'll write for you. I'll do the interview for you. Just tell me the story. I can't tell you my story. Why? You're telling everybody else. I called you. Your phone was busy. You got 3 lines and they're all busy. You're talking to everybody about your story. Why can't you talk and give God glory for what you're going through? Well, nobody really cares. It's just a rod. But when you throw your story down, you throw your miracle down, you throw it, it's just this. It's nothing special. It's just who I am. It's what God gave me to use. Every shepherd has one. This is nothing special. But when it pops and becomes a serpent, you're like, whoa, God, you used my story to touch a miracle and change it? That is cool. And then the thing I think is really neat is when he picks it back up, it becomes what it was before. So what God is saying is, don't get married to your story. It's just a story that I use. Right. The miracle's not the story. The miracle's how I use it. Right. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Right. The story is just a story. The miracle is how I use it. The story is just a story. The miracle is how I use a natural story to bring about a change in people's lives. Quit worrying about all them, because I'm going to do a miracle that you're not even going to know about. I can't tell you how I'm going to do it because you wouldn't understand. Just go do what I told you to do. And then Moses came to the last one, which I find the one we hit most often. It was this. He says, but I can't talk. I'm not eloquent. Listen to me, church. Captive people are waiting to be captivated by the words of freedom that come out of your mouth. Yes. Captive people are waiting to be captivated by the words of freedom that come out of your mouth. They're waiting for somebody with a failure in their past to tell them God still has a future for them. That's right. Dr. Martin Luther King stood up and he said, I have a dream. That's right. I have a dream. He united millions of people with words of freedom. That God made all of us equal. Why can't you go tell somebody? God can use you. God can do it. Yeah, but I'm not Carrie Job. I'm not Toby Mack. I'm not Jeremy Camp. I'm not whoever else is your person. Whoever you like. I'm not the Crab family, in case you're Southern Gospel. I'm not the Hensons. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not the other. God didn't ask you to be them. God asked you to be you. But I'm not eloquent. I can't speak. It doesn't matter. I who formed your mouth will touch you and change you. People are waiting for you to tell them that God can set them free. They're bound in chains. They're bound captives. And they're waiting to be captivated by your word of freedom. They may not fully understand it. They may not fully appreciate it. But they are waiting. He goes. Listen, I'll close with this. The way you defeat your yesterday's failures is by your present activity that reaches for tomorrow. Amen. Thank you, Lord. The way you defeat your yesterday's failures is not becoming complacent in the desert saying, I guess I'm just going to watch Jethro's sheep the rest of my life. I'm safe here. No. The way you defeat yesterday's failures is in your present situation you reach for tomorrow. Here's how Moses did it. He went back to Jethro. He said, here's the sheep. I'm out. I got a problem I got to go take care of. Pharaoh has captivated my people too long. And the drumbeat of God has beat in my heart so full that I can't stay safe. I'd like to tell you that we're going to come back. And he said I'm going to come back. But I want you to know I'm going to go face whatever it is. And then he shows up. I love it. He shows up. And I just think he walked in with a swagger. Just walked in. Who are you? My name is Moses. What do you want? I came here to tell you that God said, let my people go. Let my people go. Well, who is your God? He is I am that I am. He is an ever-present God who knows no yesterday or tomorrow. He is ever there. He is present at this moment to let you know, let my people go. What are you going to do if I don't let them go? I'm going to turn the Nile to blood. I mean, if Moses could crack the words out of his mouth, I'm going to what? Yeah, that's what I said. I'm going to turn the Nile to blood. That's what I said. You know? Oh, you all that? Yeah, I'm all that. Yeah, I can be. Well, let me see your stuff. What do you got? Okay, Lord, do it. And he dropped his rod. It becomes a serpent. The magicians come in and say, there ain't nothing, we can do it too. Until his serpent ate their serpents, and he picked it up and he says, now I hold yours too.
That's right.
Y'all ain't saying that. Y'all ain't saying that. Y'all ain't got no swag. Y'all ain't never blocked a shot at basketball or kicked a goal around somebody or had the joy of punching somebody in the nose and knocking them out. I mean, you ain't never. I had the displeasure. So you know what I'm saying. I mean, we go through these processes. I'm just saying that for a reason. Is that he says, picks it back up. He's like, okay, where did yours go? And then he says, okay, you don't believe me? And then the Nile turns to blood. See, listen, when you go with God, he always does the miracle.
Yes.
He always does the miracle. And people are like, get your people out, get them out of here. And then all of a sudden you turn it back to the way it was. And just like church folk, they're like, I changed my mind. He's like, fine. And 9 plagues later.
There you go.
See, well, they finally God got their attention. No. They got out, but God didn't change their minds. Because what did they do? They followed him again. See, your enemy is ignorant.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your enemy is unlearned and refuses to learn. Because it wouldn't take him, you beat me once, okay, I might come back for a second time. Maybe 3. If you whip me 10 times in a row, the 11th ain't going to be no different. See, we always thought the 10 miracles of God, we fail to mention the 11th one. The 11th one is when they got on the other side of the Red Sea. And God said, this enemy you'll never see again. This enemy you'll never see again. See, the only reason you're still fighting the same enemy is you haven't gotten to the promised land. Y'all ain't saying that.
That's right.
You just got to keep walking. Keep trusting God and allowing it to take place. How do I get there? One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking for you. Give me today. Y'all know the song. If you don't watch the Meet the Fockers or whatever it was that they sang, he prayed that prayer right there in the middle of the movie. Just keep walking. Keep walking. Well, how do I know I'm going to get there? Because you're going in the right direction. How do I defeat my failures? In my present, I reach for my tomorrow and I say, God, I'm willing to go without my shoes. I'm willing to go and forward with you. God, I'm willing to pursue you at no matter what it costs me. God, I'm willing to be your voice, please. God, I'm willing to do what you have called me to do. And I know, Lord, you'll bring the change.
Amen.
You'll bring the change. Let me close with my last verse. I think it's in Romans 12. I didn't look it up. But if I remember correctly, it's Romans 12. It says, let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. Let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. The mindset that says, I'm never going to let my past dictate my future. I'm never going to let my failures stop me from where I'm going. See, church, I got plenty of failures. Some of y'all know some don't know. None of y'all know all of them. I don't let my failures control where I'm at. I may have had to go through a few cowpows, and I may have had to go through some challenges, and I may have had some sleepless nights, and I may have wet my pillow more than once with tears, and I may have had struggles, and I may have had issues I've had to work through to get to this where I am right now. But where I am right now is not my stopping ground. It is just a place where I'm going to my next step. My next step. My next step. Are y'all hear what I'm saying? And I'm going to keep going until I get to the promised land that God has for me, to bring me back to the place where all I have is his presence.
Yes.
Amen.
Church, I don't know what you've been facing, and I don't know all the struggles in your life. I don't want to know, don't need to know. Here's what I know. You're still asking the same 4 questions. Who am I? What am I going to say? What if it doesn't happen? What if they don't believe? Well, I'm really not the person that ought to do it. Those are the 4 same insecure issues that everybody in this building deals with. And until you learn to trust God beyond them, you'll stay in the desert. But if you'll believe God beyond those things, what you will see is manna from heaven,
Amen.
water from a rock, quail that blows in.
Amen.
You'll see the enemy defeated. You'll see miracle after miracle after miracle. You'll see the presence of God. You'll see the hand of God.
Thank you, Lord.
But you can't stay at the desert. You've got to move beyond. Father, I pray right now for each and every person here. I don't know who I'm preaching to, God. I don't know what you've got planned in their lives, but I know, Lord, that there are people here who have let insecurity rule their hearts and rule their minds. And I pray, Lord, that somehow you'll let the message that you dropped in my spirit touch them. That, God, those who are worried about it, who are overwhelmed by it, I pray, God, let this mind be in them. The mind of an overcomer, the mind that trusts God, the mind that'll take shoes off and begin to pursue your presence beyond all else. Speak to their hearts, I pray. In Christ.